glanced down at the book she'd left. It was one of her 5-pound volumes on Vietnam. She devoured them like some kind of junkie. Thuy had been born in Vietnam and was adopted out. Her name was spelled T-U-I, but when she started school, everyone, even the teachers, were calling her Thuy by mistake. So her folks changed it to Thuy to make it easier. She'd lived in Constance since she was 3 months old, but I think part of her soul got left behind in Da Nang. We called her adoptive parents Mr. and Mrs. Melting Pot because they had 7 kids, each adopted from a different country. And now Mrs. Pot was pregnant with twins, due any day. Twins! Poor Thuy. Babies were totally overrated, and I was an expert on the subject. I'd just spent my entire summer taking care of my baby brother, Jack, a.k.a. Drool Master J. Now that he'd started walking, he was pretty much a wrecking crew in a diaper. It was my own fault. I never should have encouraged him to stand up. Soon, Thuy would have 2 Drool Masters running loose in the house. Plus, she was the nicest kid in her family, so we already knew who was going to end up doing all the babysitting. Around adults, Thuy would politely say that she was super excited about the babies, but I think it was the kind of excited we felt about me starting middle school next week. As in, not at all. Since Thuy was a year younger than me, she was only going into 6th grade, and I was headed off to Kit Carson Middle School. Not only did I have to change buildings, I would be in classes without my best friend. We swore we wouldn't let it change anything, and we'd spent all our outside time together. But I was used to seeing her all day, nearly every day. It just wouldn't be the same. I'd begged Mom to let me repeat 6th grade, so Thuy and I wouldn't be split up. It wouldn't be so bad. I'd had most all the teachers, could find my way around blindfolded, and I knew to pack my lunch on Thursdays when the cafeteria served shepherd's pie. But Mom wouldn't go for it. She was always encouraging me to make new friends. She loved Thuy like a second daughter, but she thought we both needed to branch out. We thought we were fine just the way we were. We, at least, were a constant. Mom took me to Kit Carson for a visit last month, a crack at getting me in the mood. Stucco-faced, 1 floor, brand new, and it smelled more like a hospital or a science lab than like kids. It would take years before that place would get broken in, and the trees outside were still runts held up by sticks. What kind of school had no shade? They'd torn the old middle school down when it was still perfectly good, in my opinion. It had 2 stories, was made of red brick, and had giant columns out front. It had heft. It had character. My Nana had gone there, and so had my dad and Aunt Liv. Now I was stuck going to the butt-ugliest school you ever saw. But this battle was not over by any means. If they wouldn't hold me back a grade, I'd get sent back. All I had to do was push the right buttons. The ground under me vibrated, and I looked up from Thuy's book. It sounded like one of those big sit-down lawnmowers was headed down Broad. I shaded my eyes with my hand, and I tried to make it out. The sun blazed off its chrome, blinding me. It was too small for a car, but too big for a motorcycle. I stood up for a better look, just in time to get slammed from behind. Wah! I landed hard on my hip. I swore with a word that would have cost me a week's allowance in the cuss jar at home. Switch threw me a smile from the back of his skateboard. He shouted over the music blasting from his earbuds. "Hey, sorry." "Learn to ride that thing," I shouted back. As if he needed to. Switch was the slickest skater around, almost a legend, even though he was only 14. I'd hated his guts since he'd thrown water balloons at a Veterans Day parade float, the one my dad was riding. As if he'd heard me, Switch turned again, skimming the narrow sidewalk ledge. He raised his lips in a kiss. And not like a romantic one, more like, kiss my you-know-what.